Hey guys, welcome back to the Dillon England Show. Today's guest is Hi-Rez, the rapper. Good friend of the show's. We talk about his journey from going viral from when he was younger, from rapping his order at a McDonald.
I want a bun cake and a parfait. 2 of them, I really had a hard day. Let me get a McCafe latte and a couple hundred large shamrock shake.
All the way from going viral to rapping as an Uber driver. You may have seen these videos. All the way to being ostracized by the music industry because of his political beliefs through 2020 and through the pandemic.
I was ostracized online. I was ostracized within, like I said, the industry.
Now, Rez is a fully independent artist. He has amassed millions and millions of views on YouTube and socials, all the way to where he's at now, where he's a dad, a husband, and still a creator. If you want to check out any of Rez's music, I put the description below. Make sure you go support him. If you're interested at all in the music industry, if you're interested at all in politics, if you're interested at all in really what it takes to be an independent artist in today's world and really like what it means to be bold with your political beliefs, this is a podcast I think you're really going to enjoy. Rez and I had a very, honestly, raw and authentic and honest conversation, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy it.
McDonald's ended up, they actually tried to steal the concept. They ended up like trying to take the whole idea, and then all my fans roasted them. They pulled the commercial down, they pulled the video down, and then they messaged me and they're like, hey, we're going to fly you out and try this again. And we ended up doing a commercial. I am happy to see that Trump is the sitting or the president-elect. And it feels good from a cultural standpoint, just to see where we came from and where we are now. And some people just don't see that. So I think we'll talk about it today, obviously.
Without further ado, don't forget about our sponsor, Cool Beans Coffee Brewery. It's delicious coffee. It's some of the best coffee that you will find. And when you order a bag of our low acid coffee, I'm telling you guys, it's some of the best coffee. And you also support the show when you order some. So go in the link, order yours today. But without further ado, let's jump into today's conversation with Hi-Rez, the rapper. I really believe you guys are going to enjoy this one. Thank you for listening. Grab a cup of coffee and enjoy the show. Dude, how are you?
I'm good, brother. Thank you for having me. Any technical glitches before this were my fault. So
yeah, I don't know about that.
I'll take the blame for it.
How's the fam?
Yeah, thank God. Thank God everything's good, man. And yeah, we were talking before the first time it glitched out, but you messaged me a few days ago and you were like, we're talking on Thursday no matter what, and hopefully it's a better situation than not. And that sat with me for a couple hours, and I was like, whoa, like I didn't even think about it. Like first of all, I'm a God-fearing dude. I believe that no matter what the situation would have ended up being, I probably would be a little more upset or a little bit less upset, obviously, given the circumstances. But I am happy to see that Trump is the sitting or the president-elect, and it feels good. It feels good from a cultural standpoint, just to see where we came from and where we are now. And some people just don't see that. So I think we'll talk about it today, obviously. But it's less about President Trump being in office and more about what that means, what that looks like, and where we are as a society. You know what I mean?
And even just the team he has around him.
100%.
That's the big thing.
In 2020, he was, and 2016. It was a situation where he was, kind of a political outsider, as people know. Obviously, he's still a rich dude, had connections to whoever he wants across the world. But that comes with a lot of baggage and a lot of snakes, especially as soon as you enter into politics. And, you appoint a lot of judges, you appoint, there's thousands and thousands of different people that you end up appointing or putting in a position of power, or just kind of co-signing that, when they're running and you're kind of endorsing them. And as he said over the years, he endorsed some rhinos and he put some people in positions of power that were working against him. But it seems like, and Bobby Kennedy just said it, that this is the least corporate, the least political cabinet that he's ever seen, the least political cabinet that he's ever seen. In Tulsi, him, Elon, Vivek, JD Vance, I'm sure I'm missing some. Ron Paul just came around about the spending, and he's always been about that, but with the whole Department of Government Efficiency concept. So I don't understand how anybody, and I understand how, I'm just saying this kind of with knowing the answer, but I can't believe that people see such a new opportunity or saw such a new opportunity and just rejected it instantly. And these are former liberals, including, former Democrats, whatever you want to call it, people that voted Democrat traditionally. I have voted Democrat. I voted, Green Party. I voted Democrat, and I voted conservative. I voted everything across the board. In other words, I felt politically homeless my whole life. And I think a lot of people resonate with that when they see Bobby and all these people coming together. And, it's strange that people want to reject something that's totally new when they call themselves progressives, liberals. It's like, wait, you just want the same thing over and over. You want another 4 years of Obama, another 4 years of Bush, another 4 years of Biden. It's the same machine over and over again. And that's why I was super amped. As you said, I was super amped to see just all these people coming together. That's what true unity is. That's what true liberalism, quote unquote, is about.
Yeah, and I just the amount of a lack of votes that Kamala got, and then plus just that we got every swing state.
Yeah.
Like that just speaks volume to where there are still people that are just like, no, we want the woke ideology and we want this, we want that. I think more people than the propaganda media admitted were ready to vote Trump because they made it seem like it was going to be a close race.
Yeah, the whole time.
And it just wasn't. It never was.
No, the whole time. And, I think a lot of us had this sort of, I hate to use the word PTSD, and people use all these terms. Like there's real people with PTSD. Yeah, but I think a lot of us have, I guess, this anxiety from 2020 when you just, we were waiting weeks. These look at what happened in Maricopa County and Georgia, Arizona, all these specific counties in different states. And it took weeks and weeks of counting. It was going up 1%. We're like, what is, we have all these images in our head of ballot dump. We didn't have images. We saw it, ballot dumping and ballot harvesting and people coming in the back door and leaks and all this crazy stuff. And we're sitting here waiting for weeks. Who's our president? Who's our president? We're like, we see like third world nations, Venezuela within 24 hours. Like, not that that's maybe not trustworthy, but the point is like, even these third world nations even pretend they're even when they're lying and BSing us, they're at least doing it in a good way. Like 24 hours, Maduro again, 24 hours, Trudeau again. And we're like, okay, whatever. But yeah, that really, a lot of us had a lot of stress from that. But not for some reason, I know over the last few years, since 2020, since COVID, I got a lot more close with my walk with God and spirituality and faith. And I realized that a lot of things have to happen in order to lead to good things. And I mean, look what happened, right? Had it not been for COVID, had it not been for this, faulty election, let's call it, in 2020, Elon wouldn't be as how he is. Elon wouldn't have had this awakening. Even Joe Rogan, he's always been out there in a sense of talking about conspiracies. I believe most of them, obviously, but he's always been out there. But even he, in his special, he's like, I used to think that X, Y, and Z was this, and he's like, now the moon landing's fake. Michelle Obama has a penis. He's, so that's the point. Is right. It's a slippery slope in a good way too, where once you're awake, you don't go back to bed. And that was for me. I was teaming up with Robert Malone and Peter McCullough and Pierre Corey and all these doctors and scientists. And there was very few musicians. People were very scared to speak up against COVID. It was a very fringe kind of out there thing to do back in the day. But that was, for me, the line in the sand once they did the mandates. It was less about the vaccines because I've always been very... I don't want to say libertarian, but I've always been very like live and let live. And that was like, that's the progressive, socially liberal of me, of like, I don't care what you do in your house. You shouldn't care what I do in my house, as long as the government stays out of our way for the most part, assuming we're not harming and hurting children and stuff like that. Right. With the exceptions of a few things, as I've said, like that, harming, whatever. So, and that's where I've always been. But 2020 was a line in the sand for me when I saw people that I knew personally getting fired from their jobs. Me personally, I lost endorsement deals just from, it wasn't even about being Republican or Trump. It was like, you're hurting people with your rhetoric. It's like, I'm killing people with my tweets, so then it got crazy where it's like, then it led into free speech. Then it's like, wait, so not only am I hurting people because I'm not getting vaccinated or I'm not wearing 317 masks, I'm not listening to Fauci, I'm not, whatever. Oh, but now my tweets are killing people too. And now your own family starts believing it. And I'm pretty well read when it comes to history and when it comes to, I'm not like a history buff. I don't know, but I'm fairly well read. And as an Orthodox Jew, I know about the Holocaust. I know about people snitching on their families. I know about, the KGB in Russia. I know about things that have happened historically. I know my family is, historically from Russia. I know how that looks, how communism looks. And my wife and I were just having a conversation earlier. And you have like guys like the Krassensteins, and I'm not going to go in depth about Judaism and stuff like that. I'm happy to if you want to, but there's a difference between any person who's walking with God and with faith every single day of their life versus those that aren't. And, you know, some people blame Jews no matter what, and some people blame blacks no matter what, or Mexicans, or it's all the illegal, you know, it's very,
it's always race.
It's very intellectually low IQ. It's very lazy. It's very intellectually lazy. Like, you know, if you want to blame, I guess, big government for your problems, like, okay, maybe we can have that conversation. Maybe they're overreaching in your business or your life, as we saw. But it's very intellectually lazy to be like, Jews are my problem. Once they go away, I'll be okay. Yeah. You know, blacks are my problem. You know, like blah 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 blah. So it's very intellectually lazy. But the reason I bring all that up is my wife and I were just talking that, you know, you have the Krasnodars, you have like certain people that still have this Stockholm syndrome without even knowing it towards communism, towards, you know, because most of Europe, you know, over the last, and still to this day, socialists, communists, and it's certain people that, including some people in my own family, that just can't run away from it. You see it in the Hispanic community, you know, with some people are very, very pro-Trump and some people are not. And there's that infighting where they're like, your grandma literally just came from communism to America for you to vote for AOC. Why do we want that here? You know, I have the same debates. I tend to not argue anymore with my family because that's that walk I'm on where I don't feel the need to really change people's minds if they're not ready to have that conversation. There's no point. There's a difference between talking somebody who actually wants to talk and somebody who's ready to gotcha. You said that, I said this. I'm not Ben Shapiro. I don't need to debate you guys. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not Candace Owen. I'm not, like, that's not my job. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. One thing you mentioned 2020, and that actually leads into one of the first questions I wanted to ask, because your journey is wild. So let me tell you this. I kind of told you a little bit on Twitter when we were texting a little bit. My first exposure to you was when you were doing the Uber raps.
Okay.
Back in the day. So I remember being like, dude, this is awesome. Because at the time I was like writing poetry. I was like recording stuff. And I'm like, this is like, I remember thinking like, this guy, if I ever get to this guy's level, this is like a dream come true. Because back when I was younger, I was like, that was what I wanted to do.
Thank you.
And you millions of views. I mean, 30 million, 40, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of views. You got, correct me if I'm wrong in your story, you got some deals and all this kind of stuff. And then was it 2020 when you stopped going the label route, you started being independent? Could you walk me through your journey kind of coming up in the music industry? Because for me, the music industry is like, I don't know anything about it. Like, I know business.
Sure.
But the music industry is something that I don't know about. And when you talk about politics and you talk about all these things, like one of the things I wanted to do today is learn about how did you come up in the industry? Because it's just wild to me. And then second, when was that breaking point from playing the Hollywood scene? Because I know you have your album, which listened to the whole thing.
Thank you.
And one of the first words in one of your songs was just talking about how you like left Hollywood to pursue your faith. That's on a song I play on repeat. And so I just, if you wouldn't mind walking us through the story of like, how did you get into the rap game? How did you kind of make those connections and get to your peak? And then at what point did you walk away from it all?
Yeah. So the line you're referring to is, I chose heaven over Hollywood. I'll never sell my soul. Yeah. So I started making music when I'm 13 years old, and like professionally probably around 15, where I knew I wasn't going to college. I ended up taking like one course and you know, dropped out essentially, if you could even call it that. But I knew at 15 years old, maybe 16, I knew that this was official. I had my first million views at 15 years old on YouTube. I was one of the only people on YouTube at that time. This was before even Google bought YouTube, so there was no ads. You know, you maybe had separate endorsement deals and stuff like that, but there was only tens of thousands of people on YouTube at that time in 2009. 2009 is when I was on YouTube, maybe 2010 or 2009. And I hit my first million probably 2010, 2011. I was 15, 16 years old, and I was like, okay, there's a million views. Not a lot of people get this. I remember trending on YouTube. You know, there was only I only had 10,000 views in a day, and that was number 11 trending or number 13. Wow. Yeah. So like that, you know, nowadays,
different world. Yeah.
You couldn't do that today. First of all, even if you get millions of views, if it doesn't meet the agenda, there's a whole beast that's going, as you saw with the Rogan. As you saw with the Rogan thing. So I was trending on YouTube with 10,000 views in a day, whatever it was. You know, I actually ended up getting my YouTube hacked. I lost tens of thousands of subscribers. I was like depressed for months on end. I was like, you know, my whole life was basically ruined at 16 years old. This guy hacked my Twitter, hacked my YouTube, some British guy, and he basically deleted all my stuff. And then I built it all back over the years. I signed a deal at 19 or 20 with Sony. And then this was a time in my life where I'm very young, 19, 20 years old. I'm experimenting with, you know, pharmaceuticals and drinking, and all my friends are in college, so it's kind of a normal thing. But I'm doing it for a much deeper reason. I'm not doing it to party. I'm doing it because I'm very confused about my life. I'm very depressed. I'm very nothing made sense in my life, from my relationships to my family. I'm I have this. I was totally detached from. You can listen to some of my old music, but I started on Dat Piff, releasing music for free. This is before Spotify and Apple and stuff like that. So all my music was free. I remember a lot of my albums, mind you, as a young teenage kid, my album, I had hundreds of thousands of downloads. So people had to go in, download it, unzip it, plug their phone in, drag it. So this is me at 16 years old with hundreds of thousands of downloads on albums. I had no connections. I don't come from wealth. I never spent $1 outside of my own, $100 here and there to go record in my homie's studio at the time. And, eventually it just, like I said, it turned into something where I was like, okay, this is going to be something. But I worked for 10 years before I turned anything into a profit. 10 years. Which I would say only maybe 2015 or 2016 did I start really turning a small profit. I did a commercial with McDonald's where it went super viral. Well, I started with a viral video. I went into the Times Square McDonald's and I basically rapped, "Let me get 2 Big Macs, 2 apple pies." It got hundreds of millions of views. It's still to this day one of the biggest Facebook videos of all time. One of the biggest. It ended up getting 100-something million on YouTube.
That was when you were in the McDonald's, right?
That was I was in the Times Square McDonald's. That was one of the most viral videos of all time. This is back in the day when there was only a viral video per week. It wasn't like TikTok. It wasn't like every second and then you're like, okay, what's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one? So Shaquille O'Neal shared it and Bam Margera shared it.
When you had a viral video, everyone saw it.
Everyone in the world saw it. Yep. Yeah. I remember I was sitting on a plane and a person next to me was watching it and I just saw it everywhere. And people they didn't believe, "Oh, that's you." "No, it's not you. I don't believe you." Because it was like I said, a viral video. I was on Fox News. I was on ABC. Lil Wayne shared it. Bam Margera shared it. Shaquille O'Neal shared it. Kevin Hart shared it. It was literally the biggest thing of that whole month. And then McDonald's ended up, they actually tried to steal the concept. They ended up trying to take the whole idea. And then all my fans roasted them. They pulled the commercial down. They pulled the video down. And then they messaged me and they're like, "Hey, we're going to fly you out and try this again." And we ended up doing a commercial. And that was, I didn't know anything about health or what. I was genuinely eating McDonald's. So I'm a young kid. I'm 110 pounds. I'm totally not healthy at all. I'm not fat, but I'm totally not healthy. I'm eating terribly. So I work with McDonald's. Later on, Mitsubishi ended up reaching out. I didn't end up striking a deal with them, but all these corporations started reaching out to me. And 2020 comes around. I'm trying to sum up all this in a few minutes. And 2020 comes around and the mandates happen. I was never politically affiliated with anybody. I did vote Trump because, just people around me, my wife's conservative. I didn't hate Trump and I liked him more than I liked Biden. And I was like, okay, so let me vote Trump, whatever. But before that, I voted Obama. And after that, I voted, independently, or maybe I didn't even vote in 2016. So 2020 happens. These mandates happen. And I'm sitting here speaking out against these mandates and people are like, "What's wrong with you?" I just got so much backlash. I got so much hate in the comments. I got so much, but that never really turned me away from things. So I just kept, speaking my mind and saying, "This is so weird." I'm like, "Are you guys nuts?" And I just kept feeling like I was living in the Twilight Zone and living in the Matrix. And I feel like a Neo. I felt like I was the only one outside of the Matrix and everyone else was just asleep. For a year straight, I felt like that. I felt alone, except, thank God for my wife, my girlfriend at the time. And I felt just alone, man. My whole family was, getting 17 vaccines. They're wearing 40 masks. They're like, they're literally saying, "Jesse, you can't come home unless you get vaccinated. You can't see grandma before she dies." All this, I was literally, I was ostracized from within my own family to some degree. I was ostracized online. I was ostracized within, like I said, the industry. But then the tide started turning when I started getting messages from industry artists, well-known people. And they were like, "Dude, I agree with you. I just can't speak out about this. Yo, I'm rocking with you. I just can't personally say it." And then I had some friends too. And I started noticing these small changes and I just kept doubling down. I was working with Jimmy Levy at the time. We were releasing all these music. "This Is a War," "Welcome to Revolution." I ended up linking up with Robert Malone. This is right after Robert Malone's Joe Rogan interview. And I just needed to connect, all of us needed to connect. It was me, Robert Malone, there were so many different artists and JP Sears. There was comedians and actors. And there was this fringe minority. It really was a minority at the time. And all of us are just connecting. And in no world are comedians and doctors and scientists and rappers connecting for any other reason than to save humanity. We're not connecting for cause we're friends. We're not connecting because we even share ideological ideologically aligned. Like some people were very liberal, some people were very conservative, and we're all teaming up, and then it was just such a brilliant and amazing thing. We saw what happened with everything. Ivermectin was talked about. It was vilified, and of course all these things that are homeopathic or even pharmaceuticals that were considered award-winning drugs. 20, 30, 40 years ago for malaria and all these other things. And it's like now all of a sudden, my mom's telling me it's horse worming medicine because
right, because even Rogan was vilified for that, right? And you remember the MSNBC when they made him look like
yeah, he was yellow.
Yeah.
And my mom's a nurse, and so as a kid, of course, you first of all you respect your mother and father, right? I had battles with that over the last couple of years, but I've come to terms with I honor my mother and father just like the Bible tells me, because they created me, they gave me life. I have my beautiful daughter now because of my mother and father, right? So you always have to respect your mother and father, even if they spit in your face and they're terrible human beings according to your standards. They still gave you life, so I always have to respect that. But my mom, we over the years I respected her opinion on things because she's been a nurse 40 years. But then I got to this stage in my life, not, as an adult, as a parent myself. And 2020 really, really woke me up to the idea that like a lot of the things we've been taught, are just not necessarily a lie, but a little bit off. It's never really fully truthful, and it's always stretched a little bit. And that taught me seeing the CNN thing and seeing all these things, and just seeing how quick people will switch. Fauci literally, I felt like he was playing a game where he was like, one mask, no, two masks now. Okay, you can take the third mask off. Now you can put the fourth mask back on. And then the droplets come out, so don't sit on a toilet. And then the toilet, it doesn't make any sense. And but it was brilliant to see all the people coming together. I performed on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, man, which is where MLK did his "I Have a Dream" speech. No rapper has ever done that unless you stood up there with a microphone yourself in a little boombox or something. But there was 50,000 people out there. I'm the only rapper in history to perform, like via government permits and stuff like that on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. And it was crazy. We saw BLM flags and Trump flags, and we saw we had rabbis there, and there was the Nation of Islam was there, and we had doctors and scientists and liberals and conservatives. And then I go home and I see even me, my music's on there, and I see like my face in the back, like kind of not my face, but I'm performing in the background of Jimmy Kimmel, like they're making fun of us on Jimmy Kimmel, and I'm like, yo, like they're calling it the Million Germ March or something like that. Yeah. And I saw, like, I got to witness it, and then like I said, I was never conservative, but then I started watching Trump's speeches every day, all the press briefings, and me and my wife, we were getting a kick out of watching him because we never cared. Yeah. And we liked Trump.
Trump's a fun person to listen to.
It was so fun. I mean? We were all home. We're watching him every day, and he's like, excuse me, yeah. You're nasty. CNN, that's why you have terrible ratings. So we were watching it every day, and we were getting a kick out of it. And then we watched the whole thing, which we never did. And every day we would watch it, and then hours later we'd see it totally different. We were like, wait a minute, he didn't say that. Yeah. And that's, you just start, it sounds stupid once you're awake because it's so obvious. But in the moment, you're just sleeping. All you care about is your money, your career, your trip. Like, it's not trivial things. You need to pay your bills, but you're concerned with your 9 to 5, waking up, paying your bills, going to sleep. Maybe you have sex with your wife or you don't. Maybe you get some blah, blah, blah. Maybe you get to party and drink. Like, people are just asleep, bro. And as soon as you're out of it, you can't unsee it, man.
Well, so I think the other thing is, like, our parents grew up with like the Rush Limbaughs of journalism, like the people that I think that there was a lot more honesty, less propaganda. There was always propaganda. There's MK Ultra. We can go through but I think that there were also a lot more, like, our parents grew up trusting the news. Our parents grew up being like, if I see it on TV, it's probably a real thing. And so they've been conditioned for years, and it's passed on to kids. It's like, hey, if CNN says this, they're not lying. They're on the news.
It's
they're
crazy.
Real people.
It's crazy.
And then, so ironically with me, dude, 2020 was also the snapping point for me and my family. Before 2020, I'd been kind of like, oh, yeah, there's some bad apples in the government. But, yeah, overall, they're, like, trying what's best. And then when 2020 happened, I live in Michigan. I live like 15 minutes outside of Detroit. So, like, it literally takes us, like, 13 minutes to get to a Lions game. And then Whitmer just shut down the state.
Yeah,
I mean, you want to talk about a fascist.
Yeah.
Like, fascism is shutting everything down. It destroyed our business. Yep. We were 70% decrease year over year in revenue.
Scary.
And like all of my friends, because I work in the business realm, I service 150 companies. They're all like, bro, we're screwed. Like it was just such I'm like, there's something that's not clicking. And then I had friends lose jobs because they wouldn't get a vaccine. And then I'm like, well, this is not normal. This is not the free America that I was told that the country I lived in. This is like Nazi Germany. And so 2020 was the first time where I like admitted to myself that maybe these people are evil people. Maybe there's actually more bad apples than good apples. And maybe the media is actually just a propaganda farm. And that's why Elon buying Twitter is just such a godsend, bro.
Crazy.
Like because I mean, if you think about where would we be without X? Because
dude, it was scary.
Right?
Like it was scary because, sorry to cut you off. First of all, everything you said was absolutely on point. I don't know how people didn't. If you didn't wake up from 2020, there's almost no hope for you. You're going to be the first one in line to the slaughterhouse. Yeah. God forbid there's ever an apocalyptic situation and there's ever end of the world like that. Because I know that we know who the free thinkers are and who aren't just based on 2020. But yeah, I remember my wife and I were just having this conversation the other day. Like, that's another thing about the anxiety and PTSD that came with 2020 election was, bro. Every time, like I make, just like you, I make a living off the internet, and this is at least like outreach and how you in turn maybe connect and do business. But I truly make most of my living online, and I remember every post I made was fact check, kind of, but next. And then and then you would get messages where, it was like, you're in jail for 90 days, please don't. And then I'm like, between COVID, between Fauci, between ostracization with my family, between, I can't go out in person to this county because that county has these rules, but that, you can stand up with the mask, but not you can sit down. COVID doesn't go over your head with the restaurants and it was no science. It was Orwellian. It was ridiculous. And so 2020, every post you made was election interference. Every post you made was fact checked. And it just happened overnight. And then you're having conversations with your dumb friends that you thought were your friends this whole time. They're like, shut up, I just want to watch football. And I'm like, bro, I want to watch football too. But every time I turn it on, I see a Pfizer commercial, and then I see blah 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 insurance. And then I see a BLM commercial, and then I see how terrible I am because I'm a male. And then I see it never. Never.
You're a white straight male.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot about the extra.
God forbid you're one of those.
I forgot the extra layers. You're absolutely right. Yeah. But so you have to once again, whether you're Christian, Muslim, you could even be an agnostic. You could be totally not affiliated with any sort of religion. But you have to look at what happened in 2020, and you see guys like Zuckerberg. Better late than never. A lot of people don't rock with him because of what he did. But if you look at him now, I believe him, bro. I believe that you're a jujitsu type of guy. This will wake you up. You start getting around conservatives. You start getting around men. You start eating grass-fed meats and stuff. Like you're like, he went from like this pale-looking vegan, upset with like the government had control of Facebook at that whole time. He probably thought it was for the greater good. People don't want to die, blah blah. And it happened around the elections. It happened around COVID and vaccines. Oh my God! If I don't let the Department of Homeland Security into Facebook, then people are going to die because of me. And it's like 2024 comes around. He's like, that's it. We're not doing anything. We're not going to police you guys. And like you have things here and there, but it just felt like, bro, so much of it. Like I still feel this absolute refresh right now where Elon has X. Facebook is no longer as policed as it was. Essentially, you could still get hit with stuff here and there, but fact checkers are not as prevalent as they were 6 months, a year ago, 2 years ago. Yeah. And it just feels like such an incredible refresh. And had Elon, I think Elon buying X is more important than people think, because it's not just about free speech on X. It's now about the free market. So now you see it with Bezos, you see it with certain people where they run certain outlets, and they run certain platforms or newspapers or whatever it is, or online editorial, whatever, these companies. And Elon is opening the floodgates for free speech, and people are flocking to X. And then they're like, Facebook's like, oh my God, we need to stop policing speech here too, or they're going to leave.
It's just capitalism.
It's just the free market, bro.
Man. Yeah, that's what it is.
So
they're like, go ahead.
Shout out to Elon, man, where it's much bigger than it's oh, we're on X and we're doing well and we're killing Facebook. Now it's like, what happened to Threads? Nobody cares. You know what I mean?
Dude, Threads was just such a direct competitor. Like it's like, oh, I could do what Elon does.
Yeah. It felt like a psyop.
No, you can't. Like just stop. Please.
It felt like a psyop where it was like X was finally, look, this is where we are now. Yeah. And there was so many things thrown in front of Elon, Trump as well. But let's talk about Elon. Just because of what we're seeing now, so many people tried to stop him. Threads is an example. There's so many small things that we saw. Elon says that he's been threatened a million times and, he's been sued a million times. The same thing that we see with Trump, but on almost a little bit of a smaller scale, not much. So many people were trying to stop Elon from what's happening now because it's a cultural shift, bro. If you hear, Rogan just had a conversation with, I don't remember who was on, but they were talking about why they didn't get Kamala on. It was a small little clip that I watched. And they basically said all the things that we know. Okay, they wanted me to go to there. They wanted people in the room. They were going to wave to me when a question was too weird to shut it. And he said, like, I'm not trying to throw her hard balls. Like, it was going to be just a conversation like this.
Like normal, right?
Like normal. But he basically said, like, it's what were we talking? What was it? I had it.
Rogan and Kamala, like just the whole thing with Rogan and Kamala, free speech.
Yeah. I don't remember why. I don't remember what I'm doing the weave like Trump, but I didn't weave back. No. But
no, I got you. I'm gonna pick it up. Well, it's funny. Speaking of the weave, Trump's when he at 3:30 in the morning Eastern when he gave his speech, he was like talking, and then all of a sudden he's like, Elon, those rocket ships, and he just goes off.
He does this.
Those rockets, I'm telling you, it's incredible, and it's just like everyone, like the left's like, wow, look how old Bob. Right, like, dude, right. He's just that's how he's always been. He just 100%. He'll weave it in, weave it back out. I thought that was, side note, the best speech Trump has ever delivered.
Isn't that crazy? After not sleeping, after doing all that,
because what he did, the first thing out of his mouth was something to the effect of, "Y'all elected the best team." He said, "America, you elected the best team."
Yep.
Trump's braggadocious. I'm the greatest. Like, we know that about Trump. Sure. But it was the first time I've seen Trump like get out of the way and try to get like everyone else, there.
Right, he was giving them the shine. Yeah. He was talking about Dana White, and he was talking about
Bryson and Elon, like everyone. And it was just almost just kind of like when you see like the Grammys, everyone's like,
it was like a victory speech. Yeah, it was like a victory speech.
And it was just Trump just being when Trump is not feeling attacked.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great point.
He is just a normal dude.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where I was just so pumped to just see him and the amount of support he's gotten from people that were Democrats in the past. It's just absolutely wild. It 100%. Is like a new thing is what you said. It is just a wild thing.
Boom. That's what I was going to say. You just reminded me. Rogan was talking about the cultural shift. And I was like, I did the weave. I went too far out in the weave. Sorry, Trump. I got to learn from Trump.
I got you. We got it back. I pulled it in.
And, so that's how I feel. That's how you look at the Russell Brands, you look at the Elon Musk, you're either aware of this or you're not. Like, there's some people that are just still fully asleep to this, where they believe the Democrats are the Democrats of old. And look, conservatives are not the conservatives of old either. Trump totally broke apart this party for better. But, if you're a rhino and you're looking at it a certain way and you're looking at it from a warmongering way and like, the George Bush, the Cheneys, then yeah, Trump absolutely broke up this conservative uniparty monopoly that you guys had going on. But it also happens on the left. Like, some people just can't come to grips with the idea that, you look at Bill Maher. You might not agree with everything he says, but he also admits that there's something going on. The Bill Mahers of the world, the Russell Brands, Joe Rogan, me, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, RFK, not to put myself as famous or known as these guys, but there's so many people that are like this that are just, they're like, wait a minute, like my belief system didn't necessarily change very much, like liberal. This is what Rogan was talking about. He's like, I remember growing up in San Fran during the Vietnam War. My parents were hippies. That's the most hippie liberal you can get. San Fran during the Vietnam War. So he's like, okay, this is where I come from. He's like, so I remember the ACLU. He's like, they're letting the Ku Klux Klan do a speech because they said that everyone's speech should be allowed, because if we infringe on their speech, they'll infringe on our speech. And this is liberal. These were like liberals talking about this. He goes, they were protesting the Vietnam War, the liberals, and we were totally against all the. This was when pharmaceutical company commercials just started coming out, and it started becoming a new thing. Over the last couple of 40, 50 years, and so like liberals were opposing that and things like this. And he said, he's like, my belief system's exactly the same. The only difference is those people, it's not necessarily that conservatives became those people, but these people became a little bit more conservative, whatever it is. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's not like Republicans woke up and they became good.
The Democratic Party left their people. Because what's important now to the Democratic Party is that you can castrate children. It's important for them that you can like just do things that even so like I'm a very much an old school conservative, not like war and that kind of conservative, just more like I'm very pro-life. I'm very much like small government is good, states' rights is good, just the classic constitutionalist, that's just kind of who I am. So while I'm not a fan of the new conservative movement being a little bit more pro-choice and being a little like kind of, but I am grateful to say, you know what, I can still make my voice heard in my party and my party will hear me. Whereas the Democrat, if you say anything that they don't like, they're going to cancel you, they're going to ostracize you, they're going to shut you down. And so while I don't love everything that my party is now okay with endorsing, like RFK is very pro-choice, whatever, but I also really appreciate other aspects about him. There's a big debate within the conservative. There's pro-lifer. There's an absolute, absolutionist. So where they're just like, all of it. We take all of it or none of it. Where I'm like, I'd still much rather have to save as many babies as we possibly can. That's my whole thing. So while it's not ideal in certain things, I'm also super grateful to have a party that multiple ideas could be talked about, argued about, represented, and that's something that you just don't see on the left.
So that was happening on the left is that's why you were able to be like this. And like you said, maybe all conservatives were like you at one point, and it was fairly collective. Do I think that you were maybe cast aside and demonized and thrown to the probably not. But like you said, I remember the left being fairly about like, look, we don't all agree on anything, but at least
which is a progressive.
Yeah,
right.
But I posted this something the other day. And this was another awakening point for me was I had fans, this was even before COVID. I just started posting things. Like I remember asking questions in 2019, 2018, where I was like, look, guys, please don't, you even had to have it with a disclaimer. That's essentially what I'm saying. It's like my tweets would be with a disclaimer where I'd be like, please don't attack me or cancel me, guys. I just want to know. And I'm like sitting there like, why am I doing that first off? But then the question would be like, can someone explain to me, so if there are trans people out there, aren't they just transitioning from one to the other gender? And they'd be like, how dare you say that trans people only can have two genders? And I'm like, whoa. So the goalpost kept moving in a sense of like, I was even willing to accept the idea of a man cutting his penis off, which to me is nuts that I was even willing to have that conversation. Like it got pushed so far that, you guys pushed me out. And that's how a lot of people feel where, I was like, okay, look, I'll accept gay marriage, but I won't accept, any of this pedophilia things going. They're like, are you calling gays pedophiles? I'm like, no, I'm not, and then I would argue and I was always on defense and I was always, no, I'm not a homophobe. Once you start saying I'm not racist, you're racist. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying that's, if somebody runs up to you and says you're a pedophile, and I'm like, no. And only someone out in public hears you saying, I'm not a pedophile. I'm not.
They're going to be like, oh, that's pedophile.
That guy must have just got caught. He must be this, he must be, but so, I didn't hit her. I didn't hit him. You must have hit him. No matter what, all you see is the last bit. So I started realizing like, whoa, we were really on defense for a long time. And the left was, you could have accepted legalization of marijuana, but you couldn't. But wait a minute, you don't accept drag queen story hour for blah blah blah. So liberals really just kept the goalpost got wider and wider and wider, or narrow and narrow. I guess you got pushed out, whatever, and you were no longer allowed, bro. It was collective group think, and I totally agree with you. I actually had this conversation with my wife and many people recently, where if I grew up conservative, I could see myself being a little bit worried that all the conservatives are now is Democrats of 20 years ago.
Yeah,
so
I've actually had talked with my conservative friends that hate Trump, not for the reasons that the left is saying he's a fat, is just the fact that their conservative party that they grew up with is gone, just like the conservative or just like the Democratic Party that is gone. They're both gone. And I think the other thing I was going to say about the left that is interesting to me. So as a Christian, I'm going to say, for example, I think it is not ideal and it is a wrong thing for have two men to get married, but you can do what you want. I'm not going to stop you from doing what you want, but I believe it's wrong and unhealthy.
Right.
So So, but I'm not going to, you can do it.
Right. You're not going to go actively go to their house.
And you know what? You can come over and break bread. We can have conversations. I'm going to love you. I'm going to care for you. I'm going to talk with you, but I'm still going to say, if you ask me what I think, I'm going to be like, it's an unhealthy thing and it's wrong.
Sure.
Just me saying that.
Isn't that crazy?
Is enough for them to be like, I've been called a Christo-fascist like 15 times on Twitter. And I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that is. I looked it up. Basically, it means that you just believe Jesus is over everything. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's actually what I believe. Cool, perfect. I guess that's right. And a Christian that pushes your views on other people is basically what it is. Which
is what a Christian's job is.
Right. So I texted one of the guys that DM'd me on Twitter. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I now know what I am. I appreciate you labeling me. And but it's just one of those things that you're not even like, we're going to kill trans people.
Right.
It's just like, I think you're wrong and it's really unhealthy. And actually the suicide rate for trans people is very high. It's actually statistically a problem. And maybe you need some help. I think you need Jesus, brother. That's actually what I think. Just by saying that, dude, you are just crucified. And it's just, and that to me is why so many people, like potentially you and other Democrats in the past, they're like, we don't want part of this. You can't talk about this community, or they're going to like, we just want an opportunity to learn from each other and be better. You
know what it is even though you and I, we definitely disagree on certain things, but not even fully, right? We're probably fairly close. We're first of all, we agree on most, but we're like close enough on certain things. As you said, maybe I agree with Bobby on this more, maybe you agree with him less on that. But what I do feel is, no matter what, if we had the same conversation 10 years ago, 15, 20, it doesn't matter in our lives, we would have came to some conclusion that we either agree to disagree or we agree fully, and then we would have been cool. We would have played basketball. We would have done whatever. We would have listened to some rap. We would have been like, oh, I like this song. You like this song. Yeah. Oh, you like that food. I like that food. And I just was never, I have thick skin my whole life because I have to on the internet with my music, with comments. So I never got offended. If you told me, that I'm going to whatever X, Y, and Z, and this is my lifestyle, that's like, I would say, okay, I value your opinion, or maybe I don't value it, but guess what? It's like, I'm not going to shut your opinion down. And unless you're insecure and you're not confident in your own beliefs, then someone else's, it's like, I don't need validation from anybody. So I don't, especially from somebody that hates me. So I don't get why, if I'm trans, if I'm gay, if I ideologically, if I don't align with you or you don't align with me, I don't care if you oppose that, because I'm confident in my belief system. I'm confident in my sexuality. I'm confident in my, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? So, and I respect that. Like you said, it's funny that the guy said like, oh, you're a Christian who's pushing your beliefs on others. That's what you're taught to do. That's what you're supposed to. That's what I'm supposed to do. So it's like, once people are just, they've changed the rules too often. They've changed, the goalposts have moved too often. Definitions have changed too often. That's why, I have, as a Jew, as someone who comes from, like I said, a family and in recent times of Europe, communist Europe, it's really wild for people to and I have family members who died in the Holocaust, and I have family members who liberated people from concentration camps. So I'm talking about proof, numbers on the arms, like I'm talking about genuine proof. We could argue numbers and statistics. I don't care, but genuine proof that this happened. And I can't believe that, I can get called online, or somebody says, well, you could still be a Nazi because you support Trump. You could still be a Nazi because I'm like, bro, like I keep kosher. I keep the Sabbath. I get off technology once a week, 25 hours a week. You know what I mean? Like I have all these traditions that I'm upkeeping and all these things that I'm doing every day. I pray to God multiple times a day. Like, and then I have some atheists like with blue hair yelling. Like I don't mind. Like I said, if I cared, then I would be up in arms about it. But I'm confident in my belief system. But these people are not. These people are not confident because they want you to validate their reality. They want you to validate their sexuality. They want you to validate. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, it shows how insecure that they are, that they know that there's a problem because they need so many in their heart. I really believe they know that there's something not right, which is why they need so many external people to validate them.
Sure.
Whereas if you really truly believe that what you're doing is right, is correct, you're not going to need external validation. Just 100%. Naturally. That's just not how it works. When you believe something to your core, it doesn't matter what people say because you don't need that agreement.
Look, I know when in my life, past and current, I'm not perfect, as Christians believe this, no one is perfect. I believe when I have sinned or when I sin, I don't feel good about it, and it's almost immediate. And imagine living with that 24/7, where there's something that just feels off 24/7. And I believe that there's a lot of people out there doing that. Not just what we just discussed, but a lot of people living a life of sin, straight, gay, everyone. A lot of people living a life of constant sin, and myself included, yourself, it's a lot less than it used to be. Thank God. I try to walk that walk every day, and I try to be a better man than I was yesterday. And especially once I had, a kid, and I'm planning to have more kids. And I realized that, I have to lead by example. And, if I'm going to be a public figure online, and I'm going to be setting example for people whose kids listen to my music too. I remember Cardi B was playing music and she turned it off when her kid ran into the room, her own music, and she turned it off. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, wait a minute. So your kid can't listen to the music, but my kid can. And don't get me wrong, like, this is where the old conservatives and new conservatives kind of disagree. Is old conservatives were canceling rap and video games and GTA and things like that, the Christian conservative. Whereas now it's like, the libertarian view is like, it starts at home, which makes sense to a lot of people. Like, at the end of the day, the parents still have to, police what goes in their parents' ears and minds. But that doesn't take away from the fact that we just can't give these people excuses, these celebrities. And I used to kind of think it was one or the other. It was either the parents or either the celebrities. And I realized it's both. The parents have to parent at home, but these people have to take responsibility. Cardi B has to realize children listen to her music, and you can't just put all the blame on like, well, it's the parents who should stop. It's like, how about you step up and take some,
cultural accountability.
Take some responsibility, man. And as soon as I learned that, because if you listen to my old music, and I almost feel bad, I'm never gonna regret my journey, and I'm not going back and I'm not deleting music or anything like that because it's a part of my history. But I almost feel bad that if somebody, especially now, I have a big Christian audience, a big Jewish audience, Muslim, I have a big religious audience in general. And people, if you go down too far, you might be like, whoa, this is the same guy. But I think that people like you and
there's beauty in that, right?
So certain people will see that. Most people will see that.
Yeah, there's beauty in that, which makes me wonder, like, how have you built such thick skin? I think there's a lot of, this is the first year it's slowly kind of being cool to be conservative again. My whole life I live in Detroit, which is very, very liberal. And ironically, like by me on my podcast, because it started off by me just interviewing business owners, entrepreneurs, and we branched off doing, more, music art, whatever. I have people I know that use me for their business that are very liberal. And it was always one of those things where it was just like, when I might make this line in the sand on my show, it's just, it's not a cool thing. And then, dude, the Twitter comments we get, the YouTube comments we get, how have you built up just an ability to speak what you believe to be true, knowing you're going to get flack for that?
Yeah, I think I give credit to the way I was raised for sure. I'm from New York. I grew up in Florida, but my parents were like real New Yorkers and like not like lefty. I mean, even though they ended up, it's funny, they ended up voting against Trump, and they're still my family's very liberal because it's like party over everything. It's not about policies. It's like I was Democrat. That's it, no matter what. But they're very New York in the way Trump, at least they were in the way Trump is, where it's like tell it how it is, speak it, and that's how I grew up. And my uncles and my wife's uncles, like my wife's family, like. This is the people I grew up around. I grew up around straight shooters where like, you didn't have time to start picking things apart and saying, did that person mean to say that? Did they mean to hurt my feelings?
Right.
You couldn't do that. And I was also raised to question authority. I was raised to question, not in a disrespectful way. Like, like you still have to say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, to police officers. And like, you have to respect certain people, but I was still raised to question, teachers they're not always correct. And it's funny because I was taught this. And then my mom loves what MSNBC says no matter what. And that's like the Bible and that's like the law. That's the word. So it's strange to me when I come from this because of kind of my upbringing. But I always, long story short, I always question authority. I always question the laws and the rules to some degree within. I'm not going to prison. I'm not committing crazy crimes.
Yeah. You're asking questions.
But I ask questions and I always bent the law. I always kind of teetered the line of what was considered right or wrong, I guess. And that was how I found my way. And then, I always believed in God. I didn't necessarily align myself even as a kid. So within Judaism itself, Christianity, it exists very similarly, but there's so many denominations, and I know that people disagree about the Holy Trinity and they disagree about angels within Christianity and Catholicism. And you have, you can name them more than me. You have the Mormons, and then you have the Seventh-day Adventists, and you have all these things. But within Judaism too, a lot of people don't realize that, even though the Krasensteins, like I keep using them as an example, but they're just very, very I mean, you have it in Christianity too, but they're just very, very secular. They're very, very almost atheists. You know, they literally,
they are. They've even said, like, I've seen a lot of Brian, whatever, like, God's not real, you, whatever.
So I try to do my best. And this is where I don't fight it online too much, because there's so many different people that, you know, some people appreciate that I'm willing to call out somebody like him within my own faith, within my own religion, things like that. Okay. I'm going to call him out. But then some people are like, you're both Satanists. You're both worship God, you know, whatever. And I'm like, okay, whatever. You know, you could believe that. So I tend to not do it too often, but Krasenstein was one. I'm weaving. I'm going to bring it back in a second. But Krasenstein was one that I remember when Trump was being anti-Semitic and the right was being anti-Semitic, and he's like, you're being so blah, blah. I'm like, wait a minute, but last week you said you were going to raise your kid atheist and it didn't matter to you. So when it means being a victim, that's the liberalism. That's the world I come from. That's my family, where it's party over religion. It's party over your race. It's party over your family. It's party over your history, your traditions. So within Judaism, you have, you know, these Krasensteins, the agnostics, the seculars. Then you have these reforms. I grew up very reformed, where we kept no laws, bro. We kept nothing. It's the equivalent of the Christian who only celebrates Christmas and nothing else. They don't do anything else. They don't go to church. They don't observe anything. They don't study the Bible,
like Christmas or whatever.
That's it. They give gifts, and then 9 out of 10 the other days they're doing the wildest things you could think of, right? Yeah. So every race and religion has this, obviously, but people tend to not notice it in that light. And that's how I grew up, man. I grew up extremely reformed, but I still had a faith in God. And I was really the only one in my family that I was the black sheep. I questioned authority. I always knew that when I was struggling or stressing or having anxiety or depression, or, you know, I was at the end of my rope in life, no matter what. It was 18 or 20 or 21 or 25, or, you know, I was struggling with my relationships or struggling with drugs or whatever it was. Or, you know, just anything, struggling with my identity. I always was praying, bro. I always knew at the end of the day, like I'm talking about, I felt like a robot for years, bro. Like I can't believe I'm here right now. You can listen to some of my music. I'm so grateful and thankful to God that I'm here right now. I never attempted suicide. I never did anything like that, thank God. But I was living like a robot, bro. Like I was living like a drone, bro. I was living like on autopilot, but I was so intuitive and so deep and so in tune with myself that I couldn't just live like that. I couldn't live like a 9-to-5 robot. I couldn't live like some guy who just parties on the weekend and then goes to his day job and does it again and hates his wife and then blah, 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 and then doesn't pay attention to his and just that loop. And that's how I grew up. That's how a lot of people I know grew up. Everyone's divorcing. Everyone's having sex out of wedlock. These are all things that I thought were normal, you know, until I started learning and reading what sins were and reading the Bible. And I'm even reading, you know, some things in the New Testament, and I'm learning just so much, I'm just learning so much about history,
scripture,
about the true scripture, history. I'm learning about what certain people said and what they wrote. And I'm like, wait a minute, bro, I was really living a life of sin without even knowing. And so many people are. I'm like, you know, I thought, okay, you can't cheat, you can't steal, you can't rob. Like, I knew all these things. Don't murder. I'm like, but you could definitely have sex with as many people as you want before marriage. Yeah. And I'm like, well, because all my friends do it. Like, it doesn't mean anything. Like, and you could definitely masturbate, and you could definitely watch porn, and you could, because we normalize these things so much. And that's why you know, in Detroit, as growing up as a Christian conservative, it was considered, bro, the last couple of decades were very demonic, bro. And you probably saw it before I did, and your family saw it before my family did. They still don't. But the things that we normalize, bro, and
but look at the slippery slope of that normalization. Yeah, right? Yeah. It used to be like in the hippie, you could do drugs, have sex.
Sure.
And then it was like, okay, now you can transition your gender. Yeah. And then now all of a sudden the kids can do it. Yeah. And now like it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And like in the Old Testament, the Bible talks about this place called Sodom and Gomorrah.
Sure.
Where it was just like this like awful place,
no rules,
anti-God, no rules. And it's like that's where this slippery slope gets us. And if you look in the Bible, it did not end well with this place called Sodom.
No, not at all.
Not at all. And so the slippery slope of normalization has just like, it just started with like, yeah, we'll do some recreational drugs and we'll listen to some rock and we'll maybe have some sex.
Sure.
But now it's like,
Yeah, look where we are.
It's gone farther than you ever thought would be possible, and that's just what sin does.
Now, because if you look at 100 years ago, we were a Christian, conservative, nation. Not necessarily were the laws and the government, but as far as the majority and the people that came from here, it was still a conservative nation, right? And at the very least, people honored and respected one God, right? It doesn't matter if maybe the Irish Catholic came here or Jews came. It doesn't matter. All of us agreed for the most part on how to get there. We agreed with the idea of God's existence, and we all kind of coexisted, right? And that was 100 years ago, and early 1900, 1920, 1930, 40, 50. And like, it was even cool. Like, you turned on TV, it was like Captain America. And like, I'm not saying that I'm pro-war, but like, they were like, honor your country, honor your man, honor God.
Patriotism, right?
Everyone was like that. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of propaganda within that as well, as we just discussed. But then it slowly, as we talked about, and I think that, the difference between you and I is very similar, but the difference between, who Zuby is? You go on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just DM'd him on Twitter, actually.
I'll try to connect you guys if you haven't talked. Have you talked or not?
He reacted to my message, and he said, I said, because I was on hey, I only do things as a person, whatever. Yeah. And then I messaged him back. I was like, yo, actually, I have Rez on.
Sure.
And he hearted the message. He said, yeah, bro, in the future. So we definitely he knows who I am. That would be, I'd love that connection.
Yeah, I'll connect you guys. And yeah, man, he's a perfect example of like he just has such common take, like not common, such rational, common sense takes. And he was like that's why he got big on social media. It was like just common sense takes that a lot of people, and he said something that really stuck with me. And this is where I think maybe old conservatives versus new conservatives this is where we come together though, or slightly disagree. 90s, 2000s, I think a lot of us, including me, we didn't, it's like so someone like you, slippery slope, right? Gay marriage and all these things we talk about. So like kept going. Whereas like, someone like me or Zuby, we wanted a certain amount of liberalism, but we wanted it to just stop. You know what I mean? So we didn't want the slippery slope either, for the record, but we disagree on where the slope started or stopped. And, you can go back and say it started
we might disagree where the bottom of the hill is. Like if you're sliding down, we might disagree where it should level out. But
you could argue that, the slippery slope existed since Adam and Eve. The slippery slope existed since Cain and Abel. The slippery slope existed since whenever, right? Since Noah, since whatever, since Sodom and Gomorrah. Slippery slope it almost has to happen. If it's happened, it's going to keep happening, right? I hope not. But the point is a lot of us, Zuby always talked about it. He's like, what? In the 90s, he's like, we kind of reached peak culture, peak society, peak where everything else was just an overcorrection. Now you have all these people fighting. Like Zuby said, he's like, gays could get married early 2000s. He's like, you could get you could do what you want. You can get abortions to the 9th month. He's like, he said all these things were basically one, right? Like you already have these things. What else are you fighting for at this point? So like you said, he's like, well, so you have these young kids that saw their parents fighting for civil rights and and then they saw people fighting for gay marriage and people fighting for legalization. Like they were just fighting for something. And these young kids have nothing to fight for. So they're inventing things. They're like, I want to fight for the fact that my friend should be allowed to change his genders. He's a good person. And then you know what? But then you start thinking, you're like, maybe my dad who was opposing gay marriage, like maybe that was his version and maybe his parents' version was the version of so it's crazy. First of all, it's nuts, man. But I think this is where the new conservatives versus old conservatives are. Is the new conservatives are very libertarian in the sense of just stay out of my life. Some people might agree with abortion to a certain point. Some people might agree with legalization. You saw Trump's endorsed legalization of marijuana, which didn't pass in Florida. So there's certain things that we agree on more than we don't. We agree on free speech. We agree on the Second Amendment. We agree on the fact that most babies probably shouldn't be killed. It's like more. So we agree on all these things that it's like the left, just as we talked about, it's just that collective group think.
Yeah, well, I think where we actually really would all agree, Zuby, me, you, your average, even just your average old school Democrat, is that there actually is a moral code of which we should live our life. Like there is a higher being that has said, this is right, this is wrong. Like killing people is wrong. Like murder is a bad thing. Stealing is a bad thing. The 10 Commandments is something that should be upheld. Like dude, back in the day, Democrats would have the 10 Commandments posted up in schools because it was just, there was an understood of a higher power at minimum. At minimum, we could disagree on what that looks like, but there was at least like a higher power has given us a moral code for us to live by. And that is what's gone from the left. It is like the whole idea of a God who's given you laws that you should uphold, that's gone. It is like, they're like, we just don't want any part of it. And it just shows you when you don't have a God in your life, it shows you where that leads.
Bro, to me, bro, when I saw, like, I drew a line in that sand. First of all, for the record, bro, I became full on, like, if you can't tell already, I really haven't. I've been kind of giving you my backstory. I'd love to talk another time and go even, once we already know each other now, we can kind of skip all the formalities. But I'm fully, if you couldn't tell by my social media, like, I'm fully on board, bro. Like, I'm pro-life, obviously with the exception of the mother's health. That's really it.
Right.
Even, rape and incest, we can have small conversations and situational debates about that. But like, I'm proudly, you heard it in some of my songs, I'm proudly pro-life, pro-God, pro-gun. These are things that I was ashamed to say back in the day because it wasn't cool. Like you said, growing up in Detroit, I grew up in a liberal area too. So like, it's not that I was those things. I just thought they weren't cool, bro. And everything's peer pressure. Everything, especially as a kid, everything is, you just want to be accepted. And, that's what we see with the pronouns and trans stuff. Like, people just want to be validated and accepted no matter what, especially young kids. But, as I went on my journey, and especially as I had, my first kid, and I started making money, thank God. God put me in a position where at the end of the day, money's not everything, but it is financial freedom to some degree.
Absolutely.
You can start speaking your mind a little bit more. You don't have to, I have faith in God that he's going to provide, me money no matter what. I trust God more than I trust Zuckerberg to provide me my Facebook check. You know what I mean?
Right.
But way more than I trust Spotify or Apple. You could, my platforms, God forbid, could disappear in a second. You know what I mean? But I know that God's still going to provide for me. And as soon as I started having that faith, more things started coming my way. And it just kind of, I was able to double down, bro. Like, I was able to double down on the fact that once I started trusting God more, God started trusting me more. And then like, there's this, it's like a parent, bro. It's literally like that's why they say God is like like a father. It's like, once your father respects you, you respect your father, then they start trusting you more to go out more. You could do this more. They know you're not going to act wild. And so like, I started trusting God. God started trusting me more. And things just started happening, man. So like, I'm proudly conservative. I'm proudly, I don't necessarily, if I'm Republican, it depends what that looks like.
What that means, there's so many. Right.
If that's the Trump, like, and JD Vance is more up your, like, and I like him so far. I don't know what the future looks like, but I'm 2020 taught me, with COVID and things like that, 2020 taught me that I have much more in common with a Christian conservative than I do a Jewish atheist, than I do, a Muslim conservative, than I do a secular atheist lefty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we could agree that one God exists, if we could agree that, like we said, commandments, laws of Noah, if we could agree that there's universal laws that we should keep. It's the
base point to have a good relationship, like, and the beautiful thing, bro, is like, as we develop a better friendship and we like argue about crap, and like, it is that beautiful thing that you have with people, like, that's the thing that is just doesn't exist. Like, the whole concept that like, even you and I could disagree and still be friends. Yep. That's a beautiful thing. Or have a conversation. That's why I love Joe Rogan so much. That's why I've tried to like pace my show after his show.
Sure.
I don't come in with an agenda. I come in to learn about someone, ask them questions, let them speak on what they're passionate about. Like, you're a musician and we talk politics for an hour.
Right. We talk God and politics.
Yeah,
we didn't even talk music.
But you're a musician, and it's like, but that's what you want to talk about. And that's the thing that we can relate on. And that's something that because of the election literally this week, that's on both of our minds. Yeah. And so that's just a beautiful thing about having good conversations. You learn. Like, I've learned a bunch of what you're about, but without talking to each other, man, that's the thing about censorship. Yep. If you can't talk to each other, you don't learn.
You know what it is they shut down, first of all, exactly what you said. I was always for, and still to this day, bro, like, first of all, I have no hate in my heart for anybody. Truly, like, I truly don't. I don't have the energy to. I don't have I don't have the intent. Like, I just don't hate anyone, bro. Like, even people who hate me, even people who are my enemies, and I feel that. I don't just say it like some fortune cookie or like some Twitter quote. Like, I truly have no hate in my heart for anybody, bro. Even if they wish the worst things upon me, and as soon as the conversation stops, that's when we should really worry. Truly is. do I want to sit there and talk with an enemy of mine that hate? No, probably not.
Yeah.
But do I want them to have the ability to talk? I think people need to reveal themselves, bro. Otherwise, we're all a number. It's all a technocratic, dystopian world where we're all just a serial number, and we're all just, it doesn't matter. Oh, you thought you were different, Christian and Jews,
than people think. That's scary.
And I know, like, I'm familiar with the mark of the beast. I know it's a Christian belief, but like, I'm familiar that you're not going to be able to buy or trade or sell. It's going to be on here or here. Like, I'm familiar with all this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what a technocratic dystopian dictatorship, even if it's meant to happen and it's going to happen, and that's the prophecy. It's wild to like. It's much better being on the side of the all-knowing than on the side of like living blind and living ignorant. And it's wild, man. We're all just going to be a number at that point. And I'm saying that people are already living in that world. We saw it with COVID, where you just like, it was like, get in line. And, that was really it for me, man. That was, I'm grateful that I got to meet people like you and meet Robert Malone, and he was at my wedding, and I got married at Mar-a-Lago, and I met Trump, and all the craziest things, wildest things in my dream. You know what I mean? Like, this never would have happened had it not been for COVID. And, I obviously I feel for the people that died from COVID and with the comorbidities, and people that were obese or had, some sort of, pre-conditions. But ultimately, man, I think that everything happens for a reason, and, you cannot, you would have to put yourself on God's level to understand why these things happen. But we're actually blessed enough to know why they happen now. Like I said, look at the state of the world, bro. Yeah. We have the House, the Senate. I believe, I don't know if all these things came through already. The House, the Senate.
I know we have the Senate. We for sure have the Senate. I'm not sure about the House yet.
That's probably why they're still waiting off and doing all the things they're doing, which is wild. People are so amped about Trump being in office. They should still be up in arms that people haven't got this information back, which is crazy. But God willing, we get all these, the House, the Senate. Trump's already president-elect. This is why it's happening, bro. And this is why it happened. And people can say there's a great reset, whatever you want to call it. There's a great awakening happening right now, bro. Like, 2 people I'm working with right now, the singer I'm working with, we're basically a duo. We're releasing new music every couple of weeks. Shout out my homie Jordan. We're releasing music every couple of weeks. And my homie Brandon, he's been filming all the videos for me. And these are 2 guys, bro, that consider themselves essentially atheists. One guy comes from a Catholic background. Other guy, I'm not really sure, Christian, whatever. But they grew up with, God wasn't at the center of their life. They're kind of the secular atheists that I was telling you about, that even though they come from a religion, they weren't taught anything. They weren't well read in regards to any sort of scriptures. But these 2 right here, right now, they've come to me over the last few months, especially. And this is just an example of a micro level of what's going on in the macro. And 2 people in my life have came to me in the last few months, and they're like, you know what, bro? Like, I'm really starting to believe that God exists. And I'm like, whoa, it's blowing my mind. Yeah. It's blowing my mind because, you don't hear that often, bro. Yeah. And they're seeing how cool it is. And, from a music standpoint, I got to go here in a little bit, but from the music standpoint, I'm noticing something. And you probably, can attest. Did you grow up listening? This is my question. You grew up listening to Christian music only, or you grew up listening to secular music, or both, or what?
Yeah. So when I was in my household, I was a very, very conservative, strict household, but I still was in tune, probably in junior high, into high school, and like secular music. So I still knew like Eminem songs. I still knew and then when I was in college, I found like people like, I don't know if you know who Shai Linne is. He's like the guy. He was kind of the godfather of Christian rap. Like actually like. Not Christian rap where like, oh, these guys are booty cheeks, and like they actually was good rapper, and he was kind of like, he paved the way for Lecrae. He paved the way for like Andy Mineo, those kind of guys. Yep. So that's kind of my exposure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm noticing that it's becoming so cool, so fast that and I'm sure there was always Christian musicians that weren't necessarily living right. I'm sure that they were just making music and this is all they knew. That's not what I mean. What I'm about to say is I'm seeing people that are making Christian music and that they know it's lucrative now. That's how wild it is. So I'm not saying that it's anything bad. Like, as long as you're aware of, like, you look into the artist, you look into like what they're really about. But it's so crazy that not only is Christian music and religious music not cool anymore, it's actually cool. But it's even more than cool is people are actually pretending to do it because they know how lucrative it's becoming. Right. They're seeing that there's such an overcorrection now that it went from not cool to kind of cool to like, whoa, this is profitable.
And it just shows there's a desire for like we want to listen to something that's like we want to listen to a rap song that isn't WAP.
Yep, 100%. And it's crazy that it went from, like I said, it jumped 20 steps where I'm not going to call any artists out, but I personally know one or two people, and I'm not going to say it because that's not what I'm about. I know one or two well-known artists that are not living any way. They behind closed doors, they're like, these Christians eat, like they eat. It's crazy to me, bro. It's crazy to me. So that's my point is it went from not lucrative. It was Andy Mineo and them, and I'm sure they were doing well. And but it was very niche. It was only for you. It was only for whatever. Now you have people who aren't necessarily Christian that are listening, like they're just like, oh, I believe in God. So it's people waking up now. It's an awakening of people that are like, you were already there, your family, you grew up a certain way. Now people are like, they're walking that walk, bro. And it's so incredible to see, man.
It is awesome. Well, I know you got to go here in a second. I did want to ask you one more quick question, and maybe we can table this for the next time.
Sure.
Maybe when we do the next show.
Hold on, I'm almost done. Sorry.
No, you're good, wife. Yeah, my wifey calls. It's time for us to leave. Next time when we talk about it, what I'd love to do is just talk about like the music side of what you do. Like, how do you write? How do you come up with lyrics? Like, as a musician myself, that's something eventually maybe we hop on for another show and do that another time, do it live, whatever. But that's something that is very...
Yeah, I'll give you a quick one, and then we'll talk. Well, I hope that the next time we speak, which I'd love to do again, we'll skip all the formalities, like I said, and we'll jump right into it. But yeah, man, for me, it's changed over the years, but as of recent, shout out to my homie Jordan again. He works on a lot of the instrumentation. He plays 5 instruments. So he's kind of already coming to me with a lot of the music aspect of it done. And then I'm kind of going in and I actually record right here on my mic. I sit back in my chair. I got my microphone and I just hum stuff and I harmonize and I have no words. I have no concept. And I just literally sit there for 10, 20, 30 minutes until I finally get a bunch of melodies. And then I'll go in and I'll be like, I like this 4 bars. I like this 4 bars. I like this 4 bars. And then I start writing once I already know it. And then I know the
rhythm pattern is.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, it might be rap. It might be da 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 da, and then it might be da 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 da, or it might be singing na 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 na, and then you literally piece it together, and you're like, okay, this is gonna be cool here. This is gonna be cool here. This is gonna be cool here, and then I just start writing to it, and it's been really, really, really easy because. Once kind of summing up everything we said, once you're walking that life in truth, or you're attempting to and you're trying to, it comes to you, bro, because you're not forcing it anymore. You're not trying to rap about drugs, money, and sex and rock and roll.
It just flows out naturally.
You're rapping about God and family and life and love, and you, how could you fail? You know what I mean?
But I gotta thank you because you were the first celebrity level, more famous person to even respond to me. And so you responded when I had like 300 followers on Twitter. Like I was nobody at that point. And I'm still, I'm not saying that my values but just from I know how it is when you have like a bot account, DM you. So I just want to say thank you to you because you were one of the first people to even take an interest in what I'm doing. And the fact that we made it here is just an absolute blessing to me. So I just want to thank you for that. And it means a lot because people like me, I've been told consistently, like Joel Berry said it was the best podcast he's ever been on. Brandon Tatum said it was the best podcast he's ever been on. And there's people that have been encouraging to me, but as a small podcast, small producer, I just don't get the big guests. And so for someone like you to say yes to me was just absolutely it's honoring and
thank you, man.
Humbling.
No, I'm humbled, man. And it's been nice chatting. And thank you for saying that. And I'd love to keep in touch and we'll chat soon, brother.
All right, man. I'm gonna thank you for everyone for watching. Any plugs before we leave, real quick? Any plugs?
Hi-Rez everywhere, man. Check me out wherever you find stuff. And I just want to confirm: is it gonna save? I remember someone once asked me like to make sure, like they're like, don't X out or something. So I don't know.
Don't X out just yet. I'm gonna stop the recording and then you can X out.
Okay. Well, thank you, brother.